So, but I think Bitcoin and some of the tech stocks are getting nervous here. You had not great earnings this morning from some of the tech leaders, and and so the Qs are off, and the S&P is kind of dragging a little bit, and Bitcoin is leading the way. It continues to be the tip of the risk spear. I don't believe it should be, but it is, and we just have to recognize that. People have to get their heads around that, especially the maxis, who I agree with them that it shouldn't be, but it is right now because it's considered that way. And it's going to continue to trade that way until further notice.
James Lavish, a Bitcoin bull, joins us today to discuss what's actually going on in the cryptocurrency markets, why he thinks Bitcoin is being controlled, and how he's getting ready for a possible market meltdown in the days and weeks ahead. Lavish notes that big Wall Street companies and institutional investors with billions of dollars are acting boldly in the cryptocurrency space out of uncertainty and anxiety. He cautions that some of these key players may have ulterior agendas and exhorts investors to brace themselves for significant volatility in the future. Giants like BlackRock are making major investments in cryptocurrency, and the largest asset manager in the world is contributing $10 trillion to the market, which is causing a wave of FOMO on Wall Street. Lavish thinks a breakout to new all-time highs is imminent, despite the fact that Bitcoin is presently trading just above $111,000, down nearly 5% in the last month. If you're intrigued by bold predictions and deep financial insights, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more engaging content. Thank you for your support and enjoy the video.
What we see is somebody who goes and wants to build up a big position. They're going to have to move the stock or the Bitcoin price or the treasury price, because there's not a lot of volume out there. So this weekend and into today, we're seeing these large enough moves, multi-percent moves in Bitcoin. Sounds like a lot, $3,000, but it's really only 2.5%. Not that big of a deal for Bitcoin. But there's not a lot of volume, Brandon. It's like it's more of a buyer strike than a tsunami of sellers, So that's one thing. I think that Powell wants to solidify his legacy that he got the job done. He did not let inflation rage out of control, although it did rage, and it got nearly got out of control. And it was because of what the Fed did. Let's make that clear. They caused this problem, but he did put the fire out, and he wants to cement his legacy there. Now, the question is, what words does he use to do that? And I believe that he's going to come out and he's going to say that we're getting comfortable with the trajectory of inflation. We're more concerned about jobs, which means that it opens the door for a 25 basis point cut in September, which is a really big deal for stocks and risk assets and things like Bitcoin and gold, because it's an expansion of liquidity. Basically, you make the cost of capital lower, which is good for those kinds of assets and securities. And so, but I do believe he leaves the door open. And what you're seeing right now is some uncertainty around how he's going to come out this week. What kind of numbers are still coming? Because we still have another CPI, another PPI, another PCE. We got more unemployment numbers, and he could change his mind like that. And so there's probably some uncertainty going on, and Bitcoin's definitely sniffing that out and getting a little nervous here. Again, on very light volume. That's a long answer to your question, but that's where I believe we're at right now in the general market. However, the situation we're in, I think that the data is giving Powell enough air cover, especially on the employment side, that he could ease but 25 basis points. And it's not that he's giving in to Trump. If he was giving it to Trump, he'd ease 50, because that's what Bissett just demanded. For all intents and purposes, again, he didn't tell him to do that. He said that the models are showing that we're 150 basis points, like 1.5% above neutral, which I think is aggressive. I think we're maybe 1% above neutral. But regardless, whatever models you're using, we are above, and we could ease. But then I think that it's time, and so the markets are starting to tell you that. And the stock market will suffer if he does not keep the door open for a rate cut. You're going to see a drawdown in the market. That's my opinion. I believe it's pretty obvious though. So, but I think Bitcoin and some of the tech stocks are getting nervous here. You had not great earnings this morning from some of the tech leaders, and and so the cues are off, and the S&P is kind of dragging a little bit, and Bitcoin is leading the way. It continues to be the tip of the risk spear. I don't believe it should be, but it is, and we just have to recognize that. People have to get their heads around that, especially the maxis, who I agree with them that it shouldn't be, but it is right now because it's considered that way. And it's going to continue to trade that way until further notice.
The increasing use of Bitcoin by organizations, governments, and the media indicates that its worth is becoming more widely acknowledged, but James Lavish believes this is just the beginning. He calls it a significant turning point for the financial industry and makes a clear comparison between the early days of Bitcoin and the current spike in interest, particularly with the focus on Bitcoin ETFs. According to Lavish, this adoption wave will solidify Bitcoin's position as a reliable long-term asset and a potent hedge against currency devaluation. He projects that by the end of 2025, there will be more than 1 billion active cryptocurrency wallets globally, which is an almost unthinkable growth rate and the fastest wealth accumulation in history. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications for future Bitcoin, macroeconomic, and digital asset content before we go any further. Now, let's get into his powerful predictions.
Well, I mean, we've seen whales selling. We saw a big whale sell 80,000 Bitcoin just a couple weeks ago. Price barely moved. That's good news. Now the question is, are they selling to go fund a lifestyle that they've held out for? Which, hey, God bless. If you have held on to 1,000 Bitcoin for this long and you want to go monetize that, 80,000 Bitcoin for this long, and you want to go monetize that, it's billions of dollars. Yeah, okay. How can you fault that? Go buy your chateau or your yacht or whatever that you're looking for and fund that lifestyle that you want, that you've held out for. Great, whatever, no big deal. But I think that some of these whales that are selling are turning around and saying, they're like, look, I've had 100, 200 or whatever X on my money already. I want to get to, like, right now, yeah, we may get a 10x in Bitcoin. I believe we get a 10x in Bitcoin over the next 7-8 years. That's nothing like I've experienced up to now. The OGs, the whales that have been around for a long time. And so I think some of them want to remain in Bitcoin, but they want to get a little bit more out of it in this space. And there's a way to do that. The way to do that is to buy these Bitcoin treasury companies, because they'll give you what will be a multiple on that return, I believe. Now, not all of them, some of them, a handful of them will do very well, I think. That's my thesis. It's the Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, that my hedge fund, that's what we believe. And we're invested in some of these because we believe that. Not all of them. We're not invested in every single treasury company, but we're invested in a select number of them that we believe in. I think that there's some rotation going there, Brandon, that's coming out of Bitcoin, going into these treasury companies, and is being washed back into Bitcoin as it happens. That's why you're seeing the price kind of grind sideways, higher, a little bit lower, sideways. It's kind of grinding here from 100 to 120. It's been in this range since May, basically. It dipped down a little bit in June, but since May, it's been in that range. It was in the 100 to 110 level, and then it moved up in July from 110 to 120. It's been between there and 110, 111, somewhere in there since the beginning of July. And I think what you're seeing is this rotation out, some OGs that are moving out of Bitcoin and into the treasury companies. And some of them are joining boards and doing that stuff and creating these treasury companies themselves. I mean, Adam Back is doing one. The MNAV that you're talking about, the multiple on the underlying Bitcoin on their balance sheet, that's MNAV, the multiple on the NAV of the Bitcoin on the balance sheet. We've seen these things fluctuate around. We started buying MicroStrategy when the MNAV was 1.2. But we talked to them. We talked to Michael and we talked to Sharish, their treasurer, who helped implement this strategy, was spearheading it for them. We understood what they were trying to do and what their goal was and what their goal is. And so, we still believe that. he's created all kinds of strategies around it. So MicroStrategy is a kind of a special situation because they're so far ahead of everybody else. They've got over 600,000 Bitcoin now. And so, and they've got access to capital markets that other companies just don't have. Not all of them, some of them do. You know, CEP 21 certainly does with the involvement of Cantor and Jack Mahler's new play there. But there's all kinds of different ways that these companies can create the ability to buy more Bitcoin.
Lavish clarified that while some Bitcoin treasury businesses may do exceptionally well, not all of them will be successful. His hedge fund, the Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, invests in a limited number of treasury firms that it deems to have genuine potential. He noted that a certain amount of money is moving from Bitcoin to these treasury firms and back again. Since May, the price has been fluctuating sideways between $100,000 and $120,000 as a result. He added that several Bitcoin pioneers, including Adam Back, are forming or joining these treasury corporations in place of their direct stakes. Lavish used MicroStrategy as a special example to delve deeper into the operations of these businesses. MicroStrategy has a significant advantage over rivals thanks to its more than 600,000 Bitcoin and exclusive access to funding markets. They can acquire more funds to purchase Bitcoin by employing tactics like issuing preferred shares or convertible bonds. He clarified that preferred shares are a smart choice since they avoid the dilution that convertible bonds can occasionally cause on stock values as a result of arbitrage trading. Lavish have brought attention to additional instances such as Metaplanet in Japan, which is one of the only public proxies for Bitcoin in that country. Metaplanet offers exposure to Bitcoin through equities for investors who are unable to hold Bitcoin directly in brokerage platforms or retirement accounts. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if you thought his viewpoint was helpful so you don't miss any updates. We'd love to know what you think about the future of cryptocurrency markets, so please share your ideas in the comments section. We appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video.